Hello, everyone. We're back for another Ubuntu Community Team Q&A. If this is your first time here, we do these every week at the same day, roughly the same time, depending on time zone changes. They're always on ubuntuonair.com. If you're not on ubuntuonair.com right now, you should go there because right below the video we've got a embedded chat window, which is where you can go and you can ask us questions and talk to the other people who are watching the video. You can ask your questions to us anytime. Start them with the word question in all capital letters, and they'll turn yellow on my screen so that I can go back and answer them. But first, we're going to get through some updates. I've got a few things here recapping from last week. We have the Ubuntu release parties coming up. Ubuntu 16.04 is coming out at the end of this month, and we always do release parties with our loco teams. You can find out about loco teams near you at loco.ubuntu.com. There's also a global event there for release parties. If your team is going to host a release party, please add it to that global event so that we can track them all together and see what the community as a whole is doing. After release, about 2 weeks after release, we're going to have our next Ubuntu Online Summit. This is where we plan the next release cycle, so the next 6 months of development for us, as well as celebrate the release that we just put out there. So you can find more information about that on summit.ubuntu.com, and we are currently looking for people to host sessions during that. Anybody can host a session. All you have to do is propose one in the forum that's there on summit.ubuntu.com, and one of the track leads will review it, approve it, and get it on the schedule for you. Then all you have to do is show up the day and time of your session, start a Google Plus Hangout just like this one, and go ahead and talk about whatever you want to talk about. Let's see. Oh, we also have another UbuCon coming up in November of this year in Europe. If you're not familiar with UbuCons, they are regional events that we host. Well, not canonical, the Ubuntu community hosts. We've got some big ones. We've got a big one in California that happened earlier this year. There's one that happens in Florida. There's one that happens in various countries around South America. They change every year where that one is. But UbuCon in Europe is going to be in Germany, and you can find out more about that at ubucon.org. And they are currently have an open call for talks there. So if you're in continental Europe and you want to go to that and you want to give a talk, now's your time to get that in there. On the phone side of things, we had OTA 10 released, last week? Was it last week, Alan?
Yep. OTA 10 went out the door after a load of testing last week, and that contained a whole bunch of changes. And then very shortly afterwards, on Friday, was prepped and security hotfix OTA 10.1, which went out yesterday, I believe, last night. So you may have seen, if you hadn't updated your device to OTA 10, you might have just skipped that and gone straight to OTA 10.1. But either way, you should update to 10.1, and you'll be on the latest hotness.
Right, so that goes for all Ubuntu phones, the Nexus phones, the BQ phones, the Meizu phones, all of it.
Yep.
So 10th successful over-the-air update. Woohoo. And to go along with that, we've also updated the API docs on the developer portal. So now if you go and you search for QML or HTML5 or Scopes API docs, you should see the latest framework. I think it's 15.04.4. So we did some big improvements on the developer portal side to keep that up to date as well, because it had been lagging behind for a little bit. And then last week we had Dustin Kirkland on as a guest, and he talked quite a bit about Ubuntu on Windows. If that's something that you're curious about, you should go back and rewatch that session. It's on YouTube/Ubuntu on Air. You should be able to find it there. He gave us some demos, answered a whole lot of common questions about it. Seems a really neat technology. All right, those are all of the updates that I had. So please start getting some questions in, or we're not going to have a whole lot to talk about. Alan, do you have any updates you want to give? Any news about the core apps?
No, nothing specific right now. No.
Okay. All right, let's get to some questions then. Chloe Wolfie Girl Nice to have you back with the usual question about the HUD, and I will give the usual answer that we still have no update. I have been trying Unity 8 on the desktop a little bit more, and I would really like to have the HUD back for that. So we'll see, hopefully. All right, Seb. I read earlier about a way to get some of the graphical programs from Ubuntu working, or sort of, from Ubuntu, such as Firefox, and it seems even XFCE or partly using that. Ubuntu for Windows and an X server for Windows. Have any of you seen about that? So I did see one article where somebody got that working. The basic way it works is you run a native Windows X server from Cygwin or one of there's several different X servers that you can get to run on Windows. So you run that natively on Windows, and then in your Ubuntu on Windows environment, you basically remote out to that server. So it's all running on the same box, but you're kind of treating it like a remote X server that way. And from what I read on that article, some basic things worked, but there was a lot that doesn't because it expected like dbus sessions, session services and stuff to be running that aren't running on there. So as far as I know, a little bit is possible, but it's pretty buggy, and a lot of things that you would expect to work don't work on that just yet. I expect that will improve. People will poke at it and fix things and change things and figure out how to run services that weren't running by default to get more of it running. All right, the next one is from Seb again. If my Ubuntu phone will upgrade straight to OTA 10, I think I have missed 9 since not updated for a few months. What's the noticeable differences between the two? Between 9 and 10? See, the biggest one I know, there was a big change to the standard set of colors that were used. Several of the individual components got visual updates.
And there were 3 new apps that arrived in the default install in OTA 10. We added Deco, email client, UNAV for navigation, and the calendar app was added as a default app as well. So we now have 3 more apps in the default build. If you are running any version prior to the latest, then just doing an over-the-air update will take you to the latest one. You can, of course, flash to an older version if you want to, have a look at what it looks like on an older image. But as soon as you do an OTA update, it takes you to the very latest one. So right now that will be 10.1. So it doesn't matter what you were on previously. If you've got an Ubuntu phone that you've been playing with and you put it in a drawer and forgot about it for a while, then you get that phone out, turn it on, it'll get an OTA update directly to the latest release, which is the one that came out yesterday, OTA 10.1.
You should also notice some speed improvements, especially on app startup, because they landed some changes in the toolkit itself to improve that. And there's a lot more that I know are in the pipeline to land. So one of the big complaints that we've had since the beginning was the app startup time, and that's starting to come down now.
Mm-hmm. There's still some work going on there. The SDK guys are working on improving the app startup time, but there's a lot of parts that they're touching when they do that. So it's not something that they can just land as one hit. There's a whole load a bunch of stuff that needs landing to make that work.
Right, but that's across the team too. So they've actually put together kind of like this SWAT team of different engineers from different parts of the project to work out the performance issues. So hopefully by OTA 11, we're going to see some significant improvements on that side of things. And of course, you could be on the daily channel, and you can see those a lot sooner as they land in the daily images. I've actually been running that for probably like the last year and a half now, and it's been remarkably stable for getting updates just about every single day.
Yeah, it's nice to when it's funny when people ask, what's new in this OTA, it's the same. I get the same problem with the OTA updates as I do with Ubuntu Desktop. If I'm running the development release of Ubuntu Desktop, then I get all those little incremental updates every day as package updates via apt. And the same thing on the phone. When I'm running RC Proposed, I get daily updates, a new image every day with new stuff. And I don't seem to notice the big things that have changed since the last big OTA update. And that's more significant on the desktop when there's 6 months from one release to the next, whereas on the phone there's only 6 weeks from one release to the next, or thereabouts, usually 6 weeks. So I find I don't often notice. So I'm the worst person to ask when people say what's new, what will I notice. The answer is read the release notes. that's how you find out what's new, is look at the release notes, which Lucas is keeping up to date. If you go to our wiki, there's a page for each OTA update, and he has a whole section about which device is on which version, because it's a little bit confusing, the version numbers that each device has. So for example, if you when we create a new image each day, that increments a counter, and so a device might be on image 200 or something, and another device is on image 100 because we've pumped out more images on one particular device than another. And so all the devices have different image numbers that are all inconsistent with each other, but the system settings now tells you the OTA version. So if you go to system settings about the device, it tells you OTA 10. And also if you run system image CLI from the command line, that tells you the OTA version that your device has. So there's this wiki page that Lucas maintains that kind of maps the OTA versions to the image numbers for each device, which is worth a look. And that also has the change logs of what's changed at a high level.
I don't think you get that OTA number though if you're on the daily images, because I don't recall ever seeing it online.
Well, no, because it's not an OTA for the daily image. You'll see it on a device that's on the stable channel. You see the OTA.
It is an OTA, but the OTA number would match the build image number. So I'm on like OTA 278 or something like that now, which is quite a bit, because we even reset that number at one point.
No, on an unstable, it says the OS version, and next to it just says R311, which is the image number. But on a retail device that's on a stable channel, it says Ubuntu 15.04, and it says there OTA. It specifically says OTA 10.1. So if you're seeing OTA 10.1 in there, then you're on the latest. But if you see something like R311, then that's just the image number.
Yeah. Which again is a really big image number when you think about it.
Well, it doesn't help when we crank out 4 images last Friday, and sometimes the number gets bumped very it kind of goes like that sometimes and leaps up a little bit faster than typically one a day.
I tell you what, though, I get a certain amount of pleasure from getting the nightly notification that there's a new image available, because they must build it in like midnight UTC time or something. There's got to be a cron job or something that spits it out, because it's usually right about the time I'm getting ready to go to bed. I get a notification that there's a new image available, and it's like 4 or 6 meg download. I've got it set to automatically download over Wi-Fi, so it's already there on my phone, just waiting for me to tap install. Whereas on my Android tablet, the last time I did an OS update on that, like it took
the dinosaurs still roamed the earth.
Yeah.
I've just pasted a link in the channel. There's a script that Oliver Gravert runs that picks out the deltas between one image and the next. And so if you look at the .changes file, it'll tell you every Debian package that was changed from one release to the next. So you can see exactly what's changed over time. I think there's other more pretty ways to view this, but that's kind of a nerdy way to see exactly what's new in a particular image. Is just go and have a look at Ogra's page. And as you can see from the timestamps on them, and the date stamps on the files, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see when the images were created. And typically there's a cron job at 3 a.m. that generates the image for the next day, which is the one that we all start using first thing in the morning or just before you go to bed if you're in the US. And then, you know, if we find we want to kick off another image, then maybe 2 or more images for the rest of that day.
I've never really had a problem with any of them, though. I mean, there's some bugs. The reason I know that the colors changed in OTA 10 was because when those first landed, the color choices were not great. And so I had like dark gray text on dark gray notifications for a day.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you know, I install an update and then I have to go hunt around to see what's actually may have changed on my phone.
Yeah, we have an open bug report, which is, I think, assigned to Ken Van Dyne, which in the system settings update screen, where it normally lists all the apps that you've got to update and the system. Oh, I've got an update. It will list a changelog, and that's in progress. It's not quite done yet, but that's the plan, is that there will be a changelog in there, much like you see in Android or iOS when you update your apps, each one individually. If you want to have a look, you can, but yeah, most of the time people just go install all and away you go. But those of us who are interested in the changelog, that will appear in there at some point.
Is that just for apps, or will that be for the OS also?
I don't know. I don't know if where they get the data from, but it potentially.
That would be nice. So they landed the VPN settings, and I didn't realize it had landed in one of the updates, and I was just pulling down my notification or my indicator for network, and suddenly there's a new option there. I'm like, oh, hey, cool. So it happens to me all the time. Features land that I don't know have landed. And
I learn about them when other people take screenshots and post them on Google Plus.
Yes, me too. I wait for, it's usually like one of the core app developers that finds them first and posts those pictures. So follow core app developers on Google Plus if you want to see what's new and what's landing on a regular basis.
Cool. Okay, we've got some questions building up. What's the next one? Chloe asks, any update on the messaging app with things like XMPP, Contalk? I don't know what that is, etc. Not that I'm aware of. I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, we need to get Thomas Voss back on. We had him on months ago, and I think he talked a little about what the plans were for this. Mm-hmm. So we need to see if he'll come back on and give us an update on the status of things.
Cool. The next question is from Seb asking, if my phone is full up with video, should I be able to install an OTA update without needing to think about running out of space while updating? Yes. You should, because the device is partitioned and your stuff is in one partition and the system update goes in another partition. So long as you, the way you can make OTA updates blow up, if that's your goal, is if you make the phone read write. By default it's read only, the system image is read only. If you make it read write and then start using apt to install a bunch of system packages like Debian packages, once you've installed a bunch of those, that will fill up the partition that the root file system is in. And if you do that, then yeah, you'll run out of space and it might not be able to do the OTA update. We have seen some people have disk space problems there, in which case you can reflash it from a PC with a cable.
Yeah. Well,
that's always your
reasons we don't officially support making the phone writable and doing stuff with apt.
Right, but you can get out of it. It's not like it bricks your phone.
You just have to be responsible for it at that point.
Right, yeah, exactly. Next question from Chloe. What's in the next OTA? That's a great question.
So somebody has a link to a list of bugs that are targeted for each OTA, and I don't remember what it is.
I shall find it now while you're talking. Okay, I found it.
Okay.
Oh, well, there's a Launchpad one.
Yeah, I think that's the one I'm thinking of. It's got like a pie chart of the status of bugs and stuff.
Oh no, that's not the one I'm thinking of. Hang on, let me just find the milestones.
I think probably Lucas has that one too.
OTA
I know
11.
I've seen it from past OTAs. Because OMG posts it every once in a while, I think. Like the list of stuff planned for the next OTA. Or Softpedia. Somebody used to post those.
So I've posted a link in the chat. There's a project on Launchpad called canonical devices system image. And if you go to that, that's like our master. If you ever want to file a bug against the phone and you don't know which app or which component to file it against, that's where you go. Canonical devices system image. And that's also where we have the milestones listed. And so there's a whole bunch. There's 208 bugs targeted for that one. Just scrolling down the list to see if any have got my name on.
And those are bugs and also feature additions.
Yeah, there's a whole ton of stuff there. I mean, to be fair, there's no chance that all of those will get done for OTA 11.
But if you look at past ones, the vast majority of them tend to get done for that release.
Right. If you look at the milestone for one of the previous OTAs, you can see they do have a significant chunk of stuff fixed. So That's good.
And if any of you listening are developers, there's a nice list of things for you to contribute to if you want to get involved with that.
Yeah, it's kind of a big to-do list, yeah, that would be a good place to start.
All right. Chloe's asking us, she says, OMG Ubuntu said in the latest OTA 10 the Instagram scope got updated, but on the OnePlus One and Nexus 7 on RC doesn't have it. Do you guys know why? And I'll add that it's not on the Nexus 4 either, last time I checked. And I don't know why. Alan?
No, I don't know. Well, I know technically why, because each image can have a separate set of default apps. So, for example, on the Nexus images, I think we shipped with File Manager and Terminal on by default in the Nexus images because they're like developer phones. Whereas in the BQ and Meizu retail phones, we didn't ship with Terminal and File Manager. And that's the same for a whole bunch of other things as well. So I think the people who decide what goes in an image are probably primarily focused on what goes in the retail images, the BQ and the Meizu devices, and not so much on the community maintained ports like the OnePlus One or the others like the Nexus 7 and Nexus 4.
Right, but it does come with a Instagram scope because I've got one on there. I don't know if it came default installed or if I installed it from the store. It's just not the newest one. So
right.
It didn't get updated in those images, or it didn't get updated in the store yet. One of the two.
Just looking through my phone for what's the difference. I mean, I never use Instagram, so I don't know. How would you know the difference?
Obvious thing.
Sorry?
There's better branding on the new one from the screenshots I've seen. And supposedly things like leaving ratings and comments works in the new scope.
Oh, right. Cool. I suppose I better sign into this.
Yeah, I've got like 3 friends on Instagram, and they all have cats. So my Instagram feed is mostly just cats. Cats and running, because some of them are runners too.
If I knew what my password was for Instagram, then I'd log in, but I don't. So, well.
Yeah, we can ask around and see what happened with that. It may just be that the updates have landed in the code, but not actually been published.
After the call, I'll speak to Lucas and see if there's any inconsistency and see if we can get that updated in all the other devices. Not a problem.
All right. Seb says, I used to run the dev versions of Ubuntu a lot before, but haven't been really, but on the verge of updating to 16.04, I think. But only a week and a bit early. My question really is how stable this probably really is at this late development stage. So I'm running 1604. Alan, I think you're running 1604, right?
I am on this laptop here. I am running 1604 and on my desktop. Yes.
So it's been perfectly stable for me. I mean, you still get big package updates every day until we get real close to release, but nothing's broken so far. I know people have been running it like the whole development cycle. After years ago, when Rick Spencer proposed going to a rolling release, even though that didn't happen, there was a lot of continuous integration testing put in place. And that really improved the stability of the development release because it all goes through these automated tests and they'll catch the big problems before they can land. So since that all got put in place, the development releases have really been very, very stable and usable on a daily basis. I remember when I first started using Ubuntu, if you were on the daily release and you got an Xorg update, there was like a 50-50 chance that you would not be able to boot to your desktop afterwards. In those wild days.
I remember those happy days.
Back when you had to edit your Xorg conf file. So yeah, update to 1604. It'll be fun. Actually, if you do it now, you can beat the rush that's going to happen on actual release day. And I just lost Alan. Let me give him a ping.
Sorry about that. I just had to go and edit my xorg.conf.
Nice save.
Switching from Wi-Fi to wired, that's all. Okay, what's the next question?
The next one is from Hosiep. Yes, I am considering to buy an M10. Is there an easy way to check which apps are compiled for ARM? I'm especially needing Kyle for latex papers and cannot find anything. So you can check the archives for ARM packages, but that's not necessarily going to guarantee you it'll work if it's like a GUI app, because there are still some things to work out before all of the desktop GUI apps will work. If it's command line, then it should be fine, though.
But that looks like a graphical LaTeX viewer and editor. Looks quite cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. It may just work. It looks like a KDE. It's got a K in it, so it must be. It may well work under the Libertine, in a container, but I don't know. You may want to hold off and wait for someone else who's got one to see if they could test it for you before you pay out and get disappointed because it doesn't work, for example.
Yeah, I mean, this being the first release of an image that even tries to support these desktop apps, there's really no guarantee what's going to work and what's not just yet.
Who's next?
The next one is from Chloe for you. She asks, are you getting a Mycroft device? If so, are you going to use your own voice so you can hear yourself reply to your own commands?
So yes, I backed the Mycroft device on Kickstarter when it was on there some months ago. I backed it at one of the lower levels where you actually get a device, and I think some of them are shipping sometime soon. I think the developer devices are shipping soon.
Yeah, they posted something like last week about the first developer devices going out. Right,
and their CTO, Ryan Sipes, when I met him at Scale last year, he asked me would I want to be the voice of Mycroft, which I thought was a bit weird, but I said, yeah, go on then if you want me to. And he was like, quite keen. So I said, yeah, sure, that would be great. So I spent a bit of time doing some audio recording. It's quite interesting. There's a website called Vocal ID. If you go to I think it's vocalid.co, and they're using this technology to synthesize a voice on Mycroft. What vocal ID is actually used for usually is to allow people, for whatever reason, who can't speak, maybe a medical condition or an accident or something, and they can't talk, they might use an assistant device for talking. And that assistant device might have a very generic voice, like, like Siri or the Google voice, or like a TomTom voice. It might be a very generic voice. And what vocal ID do is they allow people like me to volunteer my voice, and then they add samples, if there is any, from the recipient. If they're able to make any kind of noise, they can tweak the voice and add in a bit of flavor of their own voice, so that their assistant device actually has a voice that they chose, that's unique to them, that may even sound a bit like them as well. And so the Mycroft guys are using Vocal ID's technology to make a voice for Mycroft that might sound a bit like me. I'm not convinced. I had to sit and read 3,000 sentences into a microphone in order to capture what my voice sounds like. And I apologize in advance if you don't like my voice. You'll have to find some other way to get a different voice on your Mycroft. I'm sorry.
Now, what I'm interested in is, what your kid's reaction is going to be when it starts replying to them with their dad's voice.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to being able to send messages to it to say, tell the kids to do their homework, or get off the tablet, or stop playing Minecraft, or something like that. I'm quite looking forward to proxying my commands through Minecraft, especially while I'm away from home. I'm sure I could SSH into it from outside and then talk to the kids. Or maybe, like, on the positive side, read them a story at bedtime.
Yeah, there you go. I'm glad you're doing this, because I think all of the Mycroft team is in like Kansas or something. And if you're going to talk to somebody named Mycroft and it responds to you with a Midwestern accent, that would just be wrong.
I don't know what a Kansas accent sounds like.
They're nice. It just doesn't match the name.
Oh, okay. Right.
All right. The next one is for me, also from Chloe. She's asking us if there's any update on the Reddit app. And no, there hasn't been. All of my free time has been devoted to another project that I've been working on lately. So if you're on the development version of Reddit, first of all, thank you for buying my app. Second of all, sorry you're not getting updates as frequently as you have in the past. And that's probably not going to change anytime real soon.
But the good news is they can apply for a refund, can't they?
They probably could. But hey, you signed up for the development release. That's what you get.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I made like $5 last quarter, though, because I haven't been putting out updates. Nobody's buying it. All right. Seb says, so I want to run some old programs such as Maelstrom on the Ubuntu tablet. After the command thing to make things read-write mode, would that work? Probably, or question mark. So I don't know what Maelstrom is, but again, if it's command line, generally, yeah, it's going to work. Generally.
Is that a game? Oh, it's an arcade game.
Oh. Maybe. Does it use SDL?
Maybe. I don't know. I just found it in the Ubuntu store.
Alan, you got an arcade emulator running on it, don't you?
Yeah, the early days. There's a few things. So if it's in the archive and it runs under X, then it might be possible to run these things under Xmere using Libertine. And that's the demos you may have seen, or screenshots you may have seen, where it's showing Firefox and XChat and gedit and a couple of other applications. It may be possible. We're kind of being conservative and saying it may be possible. It might not, because that technology is fairly new, and we haven't tested every single graphical application in the archive. So you'd need to test that out to see if it works, or find someone else who can test it out. So that's one way to do it. The other way is to port it to Ubuntu, and some things are easier to port than others. So it's a time investment and a bit of technical work that you need to do, or find someone else to do.
That's always the easier thing. All right, Sub is asking again, something about not many people having tablets. I read you would have to put it into read-write mode. How is that done? So there are a couple of ways to do it. You can just create a file in a specific location that I don't remember off the top of my head.
User
But
data slash dot writable underscore image. That's burned into my head, touching that file.
So yeah, you just create that file, you reboot, and it's writable. There's a tweak tool in the Open Store that gives you a nice GUI switch that you can flip to do that also. And I think there's a way to do it using one of the Ubuntu Phablet tools.
Phablet config is the tool.
Yeah. So there's a few ways. They're all pretty easy. It's not a real big hurdle to do this.
No, it's not at all. There's like 4 different ways to do it, and they all ultimately do the same thing. They all just touch that file and reboot the device, basically.
Yeah.
They all amount to the same thing, and then you end up with a read-write image. But as we said earlier, we don't generally support doing that, because if you do and it breaks, then you end up having to reflash the device. It's not a long-term solution to make the device writable. Some people do, and they use it for development work, but it can become a bit fragile, and it is possible for you to do a dist upgrade, for example, when you've got it in writable mode, and then break it, and so it's no longer bootable. It's not bricked, but it's just not, usable as a phone anymore. So you might not do that on a primary device, but you might, like, for example, I'm lucky in that I have 2, and so this one I leave read only all the time, because that's the one I bought from the shop, and I only ever leave that as a vanilla user experience, whereas that one I've mucked about with so much, and I've made read write, I've reflashed it, I've apt-get installed stuff, I've compiled stuff, installed Git, and then downloaded stuff and built stuff for ARM on that one. And if you're lucky enough to have 2, then that's convenient. But if not, I wouldn't do I wouldn't do that to your primary device.
But if you do, you can always just reboot it into recovery or fast boot, and then run the Ubuntu device flash command again, and it'll reset it all back to not factory original if it's a Nexus, but the stock Ubuntu image read only setup.
Yeah, you just don't want to do that while your car's broken down and it's your only means of communication.
Yeah, that would probably be bad. Hosiep asks, just for fun, does Canonical employ people with math masters? We probably do. I mean, we've got a lot of smart people here. I'm sure at least one of them has a math degree.
Yep. Not me, though.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen anything that actually required one. As a hiring practice, we're generally more interested in what you're actually capable of doing and have done in the past over specific degrees.
Seb asks, Richard Stallman wrote yesterday about how ZFS in Ubuntu 16.04 wouldn't be compatible with Oracle's CDDL license, and so apparently incompatible with the GPL. And this story has been in the Linux media for a few weeks now. Why does Canonical take the risk over such a file system to possibly break the GPL? Well,
did you notice I took the previous question so that it would be your turn for this one?
Yeah. So thanks for that. So my opinion on this is that there are smart lawyers who have taken different positions on this, who understand these licenses in much greater detail than I do, and understand the ramifications of putting these 2 differently licensed components together. I trust their judgment. If I disagreed with them, then so be it. But I would say, as with all legal things, it's a matter of disagreement until it goes to a dispute or a court of law to make a decision and arbitrate between the 2. So, there are lots of things in the world where 2 people disagree on what is right. We have some lawyers who say one thing, other people have lawyers who say something else. That's the way it is, and that's the same for many things.
Yeah, and engineers generally, they want the law to be black and white. you know in advance something is legal or not. But the reality of it is that it often comes down to nobody knows until a judge rules on it, and that's when it becomes legal or not.
Right. And there are other things, we've taken a position on that are less contentious, so there aren't loads of stories written about it. It just so happens that this one is a touch more contentious and has been around for a long time, and other Linux distros probably aren't touching this yet. I wouldn't be surprised if after 1604 ships and then nothing happens for a period of time, in terms of no nasty lawyer letters are sent in either direction, I wouldn't be surprised if other distros did this as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of the contentiousness of this issue is because, ZFS has been out for a while and people have wanted it on Linux for a while, and nobody's done it yet because of this licensing concern.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's kind of a lot of pent up anticipation of it that's all coming out now that it's finally being made an option pre-installed. And I think you're right. I think if nothing happens, then all the other distros are going to take it as a sign that, it's safe to do now, and they'll start doing it.
And just because for like 10 years, everyone has, or a lot of people have had the opinion that this should not be done because it's against a license, doesn't mean that nobody can come along with a different point of view. That's the whole point of the legal process, is two opposing positions and someone arbitrates between them. And at the moment, we're at the state where there are two opposing positions.
Yeah. All right, I'll take the next one. Chloe asks, is Mir and the phone compatible with switching UI? If GNOME wanted to make a mobile UI, could we install it on the phone? And if so, how would that work? So the way Mir works, and also the way Wayland works, is that each shell gets its own display server. So Unity 8 is a display server based on Mir. GNOME is a display server. Clutter specifically, I think it is the display server based on Wayland. So just like you can't run KDE on Clutter, you wouldn't be running GNOME on Mir. What you could do is you could run GNOME with Wayland on top of the rest of the Ubuntu stack. And in fact, that's what Plasma Mobile does, is it runs Plasma Mobile on Wayland on top of the rest of the Ubuntu phone stack. So it's possible to run different shells. It's just that they're not necessarily all going to have to run on Mir. The ones that are built to run on Wayland will be able to run on Wayland.
Next one. Sorry, I lost for a moment there.
Sorry.
Seb asks, after reading the thing about GUI apps on Windows from earlier, I was thinking maybe I should actually become a Windows 10 insider so I can try out those things already. But I also read about how Microsoft could access the system and get into people's data even if they use that and having issues. Of course, anything like that in the Linux world wouldn't go down well, but Microsoft being able to do that with the Windows Insider. Any comments? So
you're running this on Windows. So
right.
Really, yeah, anything that Microsoft can do with something that you're running on Windows, they can do with this because it's running on Windows.
Right. And as far as I understand, these are the Ubuntu binaries inside running through Windows services for Linux. And I've not tried it myself. I'm not a Windows insider. I have no real desire for this because I have Ubuntu all around me everywhere. I don't really need it there on my gaming machine as well. So I'm not target market, but a Windows developer is. And I've had people approach me who are Windows developers and said, this is amazing. This is exactly what I need. I've wanted this for ages. My company mandates that I have to use Windows and I have to use, these tools on Windows. But sometimes I really want to drop to a shell and be able to SSH out or be able to, try various things in Bash or whatever. And so it's a desirable feature. Now, if you've already bought into the Microsoft ecosystem, by running Windows as your primary platform, you're going to have to expect to take what that comes with, right? And what I've noticed is the world seems split into two camps. There are the Windows people who've bought into this and run Windows and see this as an interesting and possibly desirable option. And then there's those of us over on the Linux side who don't desire this, don't need it, don't want it. And some people are looking at the Windows people and saying, why are you doing this? Why do you want to do this? Why don't you just switch to Linux? And it's not as easy as that. And it's providing a service for those people who can't switch but want the flexibility of having, you know, Linux type utilities on their Windows desktop. And if they're using Windows, then, you know, you get all the benefits that come with running Windows. What's next?
Sorry, I was in a different IRC channel trying to get somebody to look at a bug.
Cool. Chloe asks, how much progress is there with XMPP on the phone? I heard someone had it hacked together in the messaging app. My friend's interested in developing, and recently it's ConTalk, which is a slightly modified XMPP. Yeah, I've seen it running a long while ago, but I don't know whether it's still maintained or whether it actually works. I don't know how much work has gone on with the messaging app. I just don't know. The best person to ask is probably Bill Filler. He manages that. Your best bet actually would just be to fire a mail at the Ubuntu phone mailing list and see if there's other people who are interested in helping out with this. It may well be there's some prototype code that was done on the messaging app that could be shared. There may be a branch somewhere with it semi-working, but maybe it wasn't landed for quality reasons, or maybe it just wasn't finished, or wasn't deemed the right architectural way to go. I don't know. But if you fire a mail at the phone list, that's the best place to ask.
Yeah, it probably has a lot to do with app lifecycle embedding, which is what all the messaging plugin framework stuff that Thomas Voss had planned is supposed to resolve.
Right.
All right, Seb asks, not including the BQ E4.5 phone that I think you got free in London, MPAL119. Actually, do you have that? And do you have any other Ubuntu Touch device? And if so, what and why? So I don't have a BQ. I don't have a Meizu. All I've got is a Nexus 4. I actually have 3 Nexus 4s. I've got my daily driver. That's my only phone. And then I've got 2 demo phones that I use at conferences and send out to people who are running conferences. So really, realistically, I have 1, and it's my daily driver. So I try not to brick it and leave myself stranded on the side of the road like Alan warned.
So I have, the Insiders program got free phones in London. There was like a dozen or so people who got a free BQE 4.5, which was our first phone. And a lot of those people also got a free Meizu MX4 as well. I have this E4.5, which I paid for myself on the day of release. I joined with the rest of you spamming the BQ website trying to buy a E4.5, and I bought this one. This is actually the Android version of the E4.5. You can tell because it's got the 3 soft buttons at the bottom. I don't suppose you can see, but it does have them. And this was one that this is Canonical's, and I've been using this for testing core apps before the retail phones became available. I also have a Nexus 4 that I bought on eBay, and an MX4, which is currently broken because I sat on it. The screen smashed, and I need to get that fixed. And I also have a OnePlus One, which is here, which also runs Ubuntu, which I bought secondhand from a friend of mine, and I flashed Ubuntu on it, and I use that. So yeah, I have a few devices.
The soft button thing on the 4.5 was actually kind of an interesting story, because I think that was the really only major change that they made between the Android version and ours. They actually had to source a different screen for it just to get rid of those.
Well, it's a new piece of glass. They had to get a new piece of glass that doesn't have the transparent bits on the bottom. Yeah, fun times.
All right. Chloe asks, is there any update of Mycroft on the phone and Unity 8 desktop? If so, how close do the Mycroft guys in Canonical have to work together to get this to work? And do we have Popey's voice and any chance of Michael's voice on a Mycroft voice store of some sort? I think we'll just stick with Alan's voice for this. I haven't heard an update on the Mycroft for Ubuntu for a couple months now.
No, I haven't either. I don't know what's going on there.
We will have to reach out to Ryan Sipes and see if we can get an update. Maybe we can have him on one of these again. We had him on when they did their Kickstarter, and that seemed to go over really well.
They posted a demo video last night on YouTube. If you go to the Mycroft AI YouTube channel, they posted a demo video. So yeah, there's my 1+1, and there it's running Ubuntu. Yeah,
nice.
And
that's using Marius's images, right? From
it's actually running OTA 10, the latest image. You'll notice there's pretty much no apps on my phone. I've stripped down all the applications on my phone, so I just have like nothing on there.
Seems a bit of a waste for a 1+1.
Yeah, I should at least put a couple of games on there. No,
yeah, because that's phone. That's nice hardware.
It is really nice. It's really nice. It's really fast as well. It's really
does it do video out over USB?
No.
No. Can't have it all.
Nope, unfortunately not. Any other questions?
Yep. Just a couple more, and we're almost out of time, so that'll work out. Seb asks, Poppy, can you tell us more about the AI device you told me about? I think it was yesterday or the day before that has your voice on it. That's the Mycroft we've been talking about off and on this last hour.
Yes.
So if any of you are lucky enough to go to OSCON this year in May or June, we're probably going to have one of those at the Ubuntu booth there. So we'll be able to show that off. We'd hope to have one at scale, but they only had like one unit available, and they were doing work on it like a week or so before scale and broke it. So that was kind of sad that we didn't get that, but we should have one at OSCON. If you can't make it, I will take pictures and post them all over, I'm sure. All right, Chloe asks, with Bash on Windows, can you sudo apt-get install Ubuntu and sudo apt-get purge Windows? You can't, because those aren't actually packages in the Ubuntu archives, so apt-get won't let you. You can, however...
Sudo. It runs as root, so you don't even need sudo.
It does for now. They were saying, though, that they were going to make it run as non-root
cool.
Eventually, using like the Windows user accounts.
Nice.
So that'll be interesting. But you can apt-get install and purge and stuff, just not those package names. All right, Seb asks, an open sousaphone. I think that might have just been an April Fool's thing. I saw something there online for, but what if that? Any comments? I'll leave that to Brian Lunduke to talk more about sousaphone. All right, and our last question. Last question is Chloe asking if we can have an extended Q&A. We really appreciate the three of you asking us enough questions to get us through another hour. You guys are awesome, and we love you all. But I think an hour is enough. We do have planned another Q&A Thursday. We're waiting on some details before we announce the specifics of that. But there will be another Q&A this week, most likely.
And if not, come back next week and you can see probably Daniel and David.
Yeah, it should be their turn.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks,
we
Mike.
are done with another hour. Once again, thank you guys for all of the questions. Come back next week, same day, same time. Rewatch old videos on youtube.com/UbuntuOnAir. Follow us on Twitter @UbuntuOnAir. Follow us on Google Plus too, because we create these Hangout events there, and you'll see them before we post them again to Google Plus and Facebook. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Alan.
Thanks, Mike.
See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.